Hello, darlings. So there have been several posts in Just No Mill and in relationships on Reddit about the same subject, so I thought I'd make a quickie video about it and tell a personal family story that will help sort of explain this particular tactic. So the problem, and it's a recurring problem, is if you have a narcissistic mother-in-law who is constantly belittling and putting down your partner. And to make it even more fun, they're doing it while, living in your house. So a couple of things about narcs. 9 times out of 10, if you put on the biggest bitch in the room hat, a narc will back down. So narcs live in opposite land. If you're nice to a narc, they're mean to you and they hate you and they belittle you. But if you're a total bitch to them, they are nice to you. It's really weird. And basically, narcissists don't really get a lot of the social rules of polite behavior, but what they do get is the social rules of status. So narcissists actually have a very limited capacity for empathy, the section of the brain, which is right about here, that actually handles empathy, is usually tremendously diminished in a narcissist, but the rest of the social skills are still there. So they can do manipulation just fine, and they can also do, like I said, social status games. So when you're nice to a narc, they don't interpret that as nice. What they interpret that as is, you are low social status than me, so I can shit on you as much as I want. And when you're mean to a narc, they translate that in their little head as, oh, they're higher social status than me, so I have to kiss their ass. It's all about who's the biggest, meanest monkey, which is not a very nice or pleasant thing to live with because, everything is better when you can be nice and polite to the people around you and they're polite to you back, but that's not how it works with a narc. Another important thing is narcs don't really love their family members. They're not really capable of it because that requires empathy, but they understand ownership. They believe that they own the people that they care about. My mom actually used to call me an asset. She meant it too. So when you have these two things together, the you have to be the big bitch and ownership versus actual love and affection for people, you end up with a system where it's really easy to shut them down. And I will tell a true story about this. So my great-grandfather was a massive, massive, massive narc. Just total asshole. And that's the branch of the family. My mom's dad. There's a branch of the family where the narcissism in my family comes from. So how he used to embarrass my grandmother was he would infantilize her by talking to her in baby talk. He did his speech at her wedding in baby talk to embarrass her because she was dyslexic, didn't learn how to read till she was 13, so that was his way of telling her that she was retarded in public and making fun of her for being slow. She wasn't, she was just dyslexic, and it was the 30s, so they didn't understand learning disabilities. Anyway, she ended up with 2 PhDs. So not a dumb woman, but definitely a narcissist. So they were having dinner. My great-grandfather was over at dinner with my grandfather and my grandmother, and he started talking to her in baby talk, and my grandpa had a temper. Very short, very volatile, explosive sort of guy. So he started talking in baby talk, and he grit his teeth for a minute, and then he slammed both hands down on the table, shook the whole table, rattled all the silverware, got everybody's attention. And he turned to my great-grandfather and he said, "Mr. Otis, I understand that you were speaking to your daughter, but you have to understand that you were speaking to my wife in my house, and you will be polite." And my great-grandfather, who had abused my grandmother her entire life, stopped. Boom. No more baby talk ever again. And he was around for another 20 years. So she was in her 30s when this happened. So this was a huge deal. So if you have a narc who is your in-law, and they are, tormenting your spouse, or telling them they're fat, they're worthless, they're blah, 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 lose your temper at them, and just make it very clear, you are speaking to my partner, my wife, in my house. Because again, they don't understand niceness for being polite or to be nice. They understand possession and ownership. So what you're basically saying is, okay, not your toy anymore, mine. When you do this, open your eyes as wide as they can go, like Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, or like a dog that's about to bite. It is a sign of aggression in mammals. So you just open up your eyes as wide as they can go and do not blink. It's hard for me because I'm sitting under a ceiling fan, and maintain eye contact. 90% of the time, they will stop whatever it is they're doing that is pissing you off. Because when you appease a narcissist, you just get more of whatever behavior you don't want to deal with in the first place. If they cry to try to manipulate you, if you do what they want when they cry, they're going to cry for everything. If they throw raging, screaming tantrums when you appease them, you're going to get more tantrums, because narcs are about 3 years old emotionally, so they just do what works over and over and over again. And if you stop giving what they want, they stop on a dime. It's creepy to watch. So that is one way to keep narcissist emotional abuse and verbal abuse out of your damn house. And your partner, if they are still in the cycle of appeasement, will beg and plead, please don't do this, because they have been trained from birth to think that if they just do the right thing, if they're just good enough, quiet enough, supportive enough, if they're just enough, if they can figure out the magic combination, everything will be okay. And they're given just enough intermittent positive reinforcement to keep them dangling on that hook. I mean, my mother's a monster, and I was still on that hook until even after I'd cut her out of my life. You know, I would occasionally have, crying jags where I was like, if I was just strong enough to take her abuse, I could, if I was just a good enough daughter that I could do this for her, we could still have a relationship. And that's just not the case. You know, if I was a good enough punching bag, maybe I could have a mom. It's a giant fucking crock of shit. But when you've been, sort of brought up into this, you're raised this way, it's addictive, for one thing. I mean, it is physiologically addictive going through the cycle of abuse. It takes about the same number of attempts for most people to break out of an abusive relationship as it does to quit smoking, because it is addictive. And you don't realize how broken some of your coping mechanisms are until you have time and distance from that situation. So it's really, really hard. You might have a spouse that's just adamant that you don't do anything to upset their parent. And you just have, but if you do that, they see you as lesser than them, and they can boss you around. And it's normal to see, your kid, if you have a kid, right? All parents know this. If you have a kid and they're 8 and they have 8-year-old friends, those people aren't your peers, they're your kids' friends. And so with these narcs, when their kids get married, they basically see them as, other children. And you need to just stand up and take your adulthood and your agency, because they will never give it to you. You have to take it from them. So I hope that's helpful for some people. And, from personal family experience, we know this works. And I've pulled this trick with multiple narcs in my past. And yeah, it works. Like 9 times out of 10 it'll work. And occasionally you will get a narcissist who, if you display any dominance at all, they will escalate and escalate and escalate and escalate and keep pushing it. Magda, for those of you from Just No Mill, is one of those who just will keep pushing and escalating because they can't stand not being the top monkey. Most narcs are fundamentally pretty delicate in some ways. They think they basically buy into fake it till you make it, and they're not really strong, so if you stand up against to them at all, they will collapse. But I occasionally get the one who will just keep going. And I had a Jack Russell Terrier I had to rehome, because there was a known flaw with Jack Russell Terriers where they could be same-sex aggressive. They don't recognize submission signals in other dogs, and so no matter what my other dog did, when Zool would get in this particular mood, she would go and attack the other dog, and the other dog would be like, oh, okay, you're the boss. And Zool wouldn't get it, so she would just keep going. And it was heartbreaking. We had to rehome her after she'd It was over $1,000 in stitches in 2 different occasions, like $700 once and $500 another time. We just couldn't keep the dogs apart. I mean, they had to go. It was super sad. And occasionally you get a narcissist who's like that, who will just push and push and push. But if you stand up to a narc who does that, they will do something so aggressive and so crazy, it'll be really easy and clear-cut to make the decision to go no contact with them. So that's basically my take on that. And the hyper-aggressive ones is probably not even 9 in 10. It's probably closer to like 2 in 100, 1 in 50, 1 in 100, because people like that can't really function in the real world, and they tend to end up in prison. So that's it. I hope that is helpful, and sorry if I'm a little rambly. I'm in Baton Rouge doing I'm helping out with the disaster recovery efforts for the flooding. So I've gotten no more than 3 hours of sleep a night for the last 3 or 4 nights. And tomorrow's going to be another long day. So, stress acne. I'll catch y'all on the flip side.